The structure of the 200-hour teacher training program. You can think of it as in three logical sections or three gears. The first gear or the first 9-day intensive. So if we talk about it in the format that we have now, currently the city format, if you will, which goes over 5 weeks, and then the same logical structure applies in a residential format, which I'll come back to in a minute. So the three sections, the first 9 days, the middle 3 weeks and 2 weekends being the second gear, second section, and then the final 9-day intensive. So the three logical sections. The first section of the program, the first gear of the program is really geared around several key objectives or larger outcomes. One of it being taking your yoga practice and elevating your yoga practice, no matter where you are, several levels up from where you are. So we have people who have done teacher training or teacher trainings before, and then still come and train here because of the quality of the program, and even if they're an advanced practitioner, the work that we do on a postural level and the alignment work that we do, they still gain a lot. So if you're one of those advanced practitioners, then you've still got a lot to come and gain from this program and from what we teach in our principles of the practice. And if you've just been practicing for a few years, what I'm really interested in the program when you're coming into the program is not so much that you can do fancy postures, because this is one of the questions that people ask. I'm more interested in your awareness of your body and how present you are in your body. So when you're coming into the program, I want to see that you have some level or a good level of awareness and presence, and then we just build upon that. That will build anyway when we do all this postural work. Some of the ways we do that is, daily yoga practice, which has a certain intensity to it, and the teachings are laid in many ways in those classes. We also take the sequence, which I'll come back to in a minute, and break the sequence down into a series of posture workshops which span through a good part of the first 9 days. What we do there is look at alignment, how to modify the practice for your body type and all the different body types that you will encounter in your classes. And normally there's a good selection of that, in the programs anyway. Our bodies are built uniquely and differently, so in our practice we actually embrace that and take that and teach you how to modify the practice so you can take the practice and make it accessible to everyone, so everyone can come into your classes and enjoy the benefits of yoga. Some of the other things we do, for example, in the sequence, I'll come back to talking about the sequence. The sequence, some styles of yoga have a fixed sequence. That means the same amount of postures, the same sequence, every single time you go to the class. Now, that can be good in the sense that if you're new to the practice, it gives you some stability and some certainty. But after a while, as human beings, our next need is variety and an uncertainty or surprise. Certain element of surprise, certain level, so that we can always feel like we're growing and progressing. So this sequence, it's not the same, whatever X amount of postures every single time, and certainly not in the same order either. But also not so varied that it's completely random. There is a very clear structure and format to the sequence, and within the sequence, there's groups of postures, and there's, we'll do a session on the mechanics of the sequence, from an anatomical, from a physical point of view, why things are structured in a certain way that they're structured in the sequence, and then from an energetic point of view, taking the students' bodies through a whole energetic journey, starting from the ground, working up to a certain posture, and then back down to the ground is generally the structure that we go through. So you will learn in the sequencing sessions that logic behind it, why, what, where, how things are put together, so that once you learn the sequence, once you learn that format, and you've been teaching for a little while, it gives you this ability to then be creative with your sequence. Now, the reason for that is sometimes, new yoga teachers, one of the things that one of the mistakes that they make is start to move the pieces external to them first. Now, the intention is good because they want to keep the classes interesting for their students. But when you don't know what you're doing with your sequencing, when you don't understand some of the things that we're teaching here, it's very easy to create a sequence that may look fancy but doesn't feel good or good at all in the body, or worse still, may be injurious to your students. Or they just feel tweaked or depleted of energy or just too wired because of the way you put your sequence together. It may look fancy, but might not give you the result that you want. And these are all kind of beginner mistakes as yoga teachers, and actually not just beginners. I've seen teachers who've been teaching for some time, and because they don't have these building blocks, they create weird sequences. So all of those things that we want to avoid. So in the sequencing session, we'll look at this so that when you start to then vary things, it comes from a well thought out, time-tested, proven formula, recipe for the sequence, so that you can move the pieces around and it still works from a physical, anatomical, energetic point of view. And the result of that is that your students leave your classes feeling balanced physically and energetically and ready to step back into their lives and take on whatever life throws at them, whatever challenges life throws at them, just from being there in your class. And this is just one of the levers that you as a yoga teacher get to turn up or down and tweak in your yoga class to create that result. So that's the sequence and the sequencing. As I said, we'll do a series of posture workshops through the first 9 days. The other major focus or outcome in the first 9 days is to take your teaching from day one, to begin teaching and to continue to evolve your teaching, in that first 9 days, in that first gear of the program, going from zero, perhaps if you've never taught before, or close to zero, or if you've been teaching, then you've got some teaching experience, and just keep layering it in, keep working on all the different elements of you as a powerful teacher, starting on day one with just teaching a buddy for a few minutes, just so that you kind of get over the nerves of teaching. And then once you've done that first step, it just gets easy. Let me tend to delve in deeper. Maybe you'll teach a couple of buddies, 2-3 people, different settings, different setup as you go through the first 9 days, all the way up to actually teaching the whole group in those first 9 days. One of the objectives of the program, the intentions of the program, is that you are ready to teach a class straight after you finish the first 9-day intensive, not the end of the program. So the reason for that is because that's just the beginning. For some programs, they don't even get there. We've done that in the first 9 days. The reason for that is when you go into the second and the third year of the program, you have an opportunity to put your name down for the community classes that will span right through from the second, right up to the end of the program, second year to the end. And the community classes are invaluable because you get to teach while you're in program, not after you finish, but while you're in program, a live environment where they are paying students. The way we do it is, so they will take the money and just donate it to a charity. The group chooses which charity, which is also a really cool way to do it. And then you get this kind of life experience of teaching bodies that, they are not there, they're not your buddies from the training. They're people from outside. So you need to apply the skills. You need to deliver a class of a certain standard because that is expected of you, but also they know you are teachers in training, so it's okay if you do fumble around, it's all right. So it grows you beyond what I get to do in a classroom setting. And when I say classroom setting, it's far from a traditional or academic classroom setting. The way I like to teach is make it as fun, experiential as possible, so that you're learning not just on a logical or a factual level, but actually much deeper than that in your body, in your nervous system, and emotionally as well. So when you stand in front of a room, you might just surprise yourself on what comes out of you, because it's all already been practiced, it's already there within you, and you're living it as well. So that's your teaching. From the first 9 days, we'll continue to build your teaching right up to the end. And one of my promises to the group is that I pretty much make it impossible for you to leave the program and not be able to teach. It just doesn't happen in the program. You're guaranteed to leave the program, not just be confident in your teaching, but to bring yourself into your teaching, your own essence, your own flavor into what is, this style of yoga. So rather than creating more clones of myself, I'm more interested in giving you the templates so that you can then fill that in with your journey, your whatever it is, your inspiration, your kind of lessons along the way in life and on the mat, and then package it in a way that's accessible to your students so that they can just use that straight away. So that's the teaching. The other areas that we focus on in the first 9 days, various lectures, that we go into. And when I say again lectures, they're not academic. I certainly didn't enjoy learning in an academic way. It didn't work for me, so I don't teach in that way either. It's as much as possible experiential, fun, playful. So the more fun you're having, the more you're actually going to retain anyway. So that's the way we work. We'll go through various lectures and we'll start off also by looking at some yoga philosophy at that stage of the program. You'll meet our 2 other co-facilitators, who is Sandra and Maria. Sandra, very senior level yoga teacher, very highly sought out after. She owns a couple of studios outside of London. Amazing human being, phenomenal human being. She's done a lot of work on herself. She's also a body psychotherapist, so she understands the link between the body, the mind, the emotions, spirit, and she brings it in a very human way, a very nurturing, loving way into our sessions. So Sandra will come in and she will deliver some of her own content, as well as she'll partner up with me and deliver some of the deeper process work, the transformational work, which I'll come back to in a minute. The other person you'll meet is Maria. She's amazing in anatomy. She's also a qualified physiotherapist. She's from Austria. The enthusiasm, the bubbliness, the fun way of teaching that she delivers anatomy. We get to deliver what she delivers, the anatomy, in 2 days. And in 2 days, you will learn more anatomy or more about anatomy than what you would learn in a stock standard 200-hour teach training program. Just because of the way it's taught, that you are feeling the muscles in your body. You learn about the 12 key functional muscles in the body, how to palpate those muscles, how to feel that in your body, how to work with the body and work, with the different body types in the group, and feel it, to see it, to experience it in your body, and then to take the knowledge of anatomy and apply it into postures and solving your students' postural problems, so that you can weave this knowledge into your teaching and help your students, rather than it be normally what happens is you look at some diagrams on the wall and you memorize them and somehow you have to make sense of it and teach it. We certainly don't do that in this program. So there's a lot of stuff that's covered in this, the first 9 days, the first year of the program, if you will, and that sets you up for the second stage of the program. So if you do the city version of the program, it's over 5 weeks of 9 days, 2 weekends and 9 days. And in the middle 3 weeks and 2 weekends, in the city version, you go back into your life. The reason for that is what I call integration. Rather than having to deal with life on your own afterwards, you go back into your life, start to merge back into your life, take what you've learned, start to apply it into your life, and if there's anything that's challenging, then you bring it back into the program. And then on the weekends, I work through that stuff with the group. I'll coach and mentor the group through those challenges, resolve them, so then you take the next level and go back into your life. And we do that, 3 times, and you coming in and out of the weekends and then into the final 9 days. So we iron out as much of that as possible so that you're ready to step back into your life. That integration piece, we will do some special sessions in the residential version where, perhaps you don't have the opportunity of going back into your life because you're there for the whole duration of the residential program. So there's a special way of teaching it and integrating back into life, which I'll cover off in the residential version. And I think these are some of the things that makes this program different because of my skill set, not just as a yoga teacher, but as a transformational facilitator and also a leader in healing modalities. I can actually weave in some of these things and deliver it in such a way that other people just can only do it in a logical way, which doesn't always work. So those are the middle 3 weeks. You have some assignments. You go back into your life, and you start to bring the richness of the program back into your life. You start to see things work, or maybe not work so well, and we work through that. And we bring it into the 2 weekends. The middle 2 weekends, I try not to teach too much more that's new, or the second gear of the program. If you're in the residential version, because we want to take what you've learned in the first gear, the first section of the program, and really in the second gear, really polish up the tools, really know your stuff so that you can teach it proficiently to your students, and share it with your students. We don't want to learn too much more that's new, but however, there's two major things that I will teach and cover. So one is you get to come in and sit in on a beginner's workshop. So no matter where it is that we have the trainings, we will create some beginner's workshop or one, which I will facilitate. They're normally attended by people who are brand new to yoga, or maybe they've just done a few classes. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So in those beginners workshop, you guys will get to come in and participate in the workshop. And the beginners become our teachers, because if you've been practicing for a little while, we tend to forget what it's like to be a beginner again. The beginner, what's amazing about the beginner is that they're just wide open to learning, because they come in and we don't know as a beginner, so because of that, we just learn a lot. We're open to learning. So they'll teach us how to be a beginner again, go back into our beginners' minds. And you also get to see how in 2.5 hours, I facilitate the group going from zero or close to zero knowledge and experience in yoga to leaving the workshop in 2.5 hours, feeling success in their practice, and wanting to come back for more, wanting to share this with your friends and bring them back as well for more. And in that section, we also delve into the middle 2 weeks, we delve into hands-on assisting. So there is a separate hands-on assisting program which I teach. So it won't be the full-blown hands-on assisting program, but you'll learn enough in those 2 weekends so that you can start to put your hands on your students while you're teaching, be able to guide them, not just through your cues and your words and you demoing the postures, but also the power of your touch, so that they get another dimension of the practice as well. It's really useful if you are doing one-to-ones, to have some hands-on assisting skills that you can bring into your classes. So that's the middle, the second gear of the program. And by that stage, if you've been in the city version, you've been in and out of program for 4 weeks. If you're in the residential version, at least 2 weeks of intensive training, and then we go into the final gear, the third gear of the program. In this section, all of that work is actually setting up the groundwork, the foundation for us to delve in and go deeper into the final 9 days. This is where we do the deeper work, the transformational work. This process really starts on day 1, and every day we just go a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, so it's as smooth a transition as possible by the time you go into the final 9 days. This is some of the key work that differentiates our program to anywhere else. Using the tools of yoga, using the tools of transformation, we'll look at some of the bigger questions in life, like who are you? Why are you here in this lifetime? What's your bigger purpose? What's the kind of life that you dream of? What's holding you back from having that now? If we remove the obstacles, what's really possible for you in your life right now? And then as a yoga teacher, what's going to make you a heartfelt, inspiring, magnetic yoga teacher? Someone who can really touch people's lives and impact people's lives, even if you're just standing in front of a room calling out postures. And in those final 9 days, as well as this work, we delve deeper into some of the areas of knowledge of yoga, some of the lectures that we started off in the first 9 days. And we'll finish up this section with a session on business on the Friday, just before we finish up the program, where I will share my experience as a studio owner. So here in London, I've started a studio from scratch 10 years ago, built it up, and I've literally just come out of that business, and my focus is now training teachers. But when I talk about business, I've got first-hand experience of the hard knocks, I call it schooling in business, of building a studio from scratch, literally just coming in, moving to London with a backpack, flying at tube stations, to building a studio which would house 80, 90 people in the class, back to back, and progressing on 10 years from that, giving that business to someone else and just kind of moving into what I do now. So when I talk about it, it's not just kind of from textbooks, like from an MBA or anything like that. It's the MBA of actually doing it, and learning by having my money in it and losing it and being kicked out of studios and dealing with it and getting customers in and losing customers and this and that and just kind of rolling with it. So I'll teach, my passion is not just always the strategy, but also more so the mindset, So I'll teach the mindset as well, and I give a behind the scenes on how we've managed to create one of London's leading yoga communities and schools, teacher training schools, as well as studio as well. And sometimes I'll just bring in some guest speakers. Like, in the last training, we had someone come in who was an expert in internet marketing. She was amazing. We were in alignment, so, I just invited her to come and contribute to the group. So sometimes, if that's possible, I do that as well. And I'm very picky with who I bring into the program. This is kind of like sacred space, so, I'm really, really choosy. They really have to be the top of the game before I let them into this environment. We finish up on the Saturday with 2 exams, a written and a practical exam. The exams are there just to make sure that everyone knows their stuff. And when you leave the program, you're at a high standard. And also because we now have a strong reputation across the UK, and growing across Europe and right up all the way up to Australia, New Zealand, our graduates are all the way out there. And people come to our program pretty much only through word of mouth. If you see my website, it's actually very basic, and really, I don't do any internet marketing at all. All of it is just word of mouth. So people come to the program because they've heard from someone else how life-transforming it's been. And also, maybe they've hired one of our graduates who've been amazing yoga teachers, so that they just want more, so they recommend it to others. So what I'm getting at is the exams. Make sure you know your stuff, you leave the program at a high standard, and kind of selfishly as well, allows us to maintain our reputation as a school that produces just top yoga teachers. And then on the Sunday, we finish up with a really special closing ceremony that leaves you full of energy and ready to step back into your life and to take what you've learned in the program and go back into your life and create it for yourself, whatever it is that you may have discovered for yourself. There you have it. That's the structure of our 200-hour teacher training program.